We're going to do silly. Silly is here on this plate. Right? And not silly on this plate. Okay? That's going to be the sound for silly? Okay. Silly is not silly. Alright. You tell me what you think about these guys. How about Grover? Is he silly or not silly? Silly or not silly? Grover is silly. We'll put him on the silly plate. Oh, you don't want? We're gonna put him on the plate anyway. Okay, we're gonna categorize silly and not silly. Grover's silly because he looks silly and he makes lots of silly sounds and does lots of silly things. How about Elmo? Elmo is silly. He has a silly sound. He talks like this and he does goofy things. How about Mother Gothel? Is Mother Gothel silly? I don't think so. She's mean. Yes. Mother Gothel's mean. She's mean to Rapunzel, remember? She kept her locked in that tower all that time. How about Tomater? He's silly. He makes silly sounds. He talks like this. My name's Tomater. And he has a funny face and he does funny things.
He could move.
How about Bubbles? Bubbles is a fish. You think he's not silly?
He could move.
I think Bubbles is silly because when that treasure chest opens, he always goes, "Oh, Bubbles, 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 Bubbles." That's silly. I think that's silly. How about Zoe? I can't tell. Is that silly or not silly? Maybe we need a new sound for silly and silly. And not silly. You think Zoe's not silly, but what happens when she spins around? She spins and spins and spins, and then she gets dizzy and falls down. That's a silly thing that she does. So that's silly. I think Zoe is silly. You think she's not silly? I think she's silly. Alright. How about Cinderella? She isn't silly. She's just pretty and she's very nice. She's very nice. She doesn't do silly things, but she likes to sing. How about Dopey? Is that silly or not silly? Silly, okay. Alright, so we have Bubbles is silly, Tomater is silly, Dopey is silly, Zoe's silly, Elmo's silly, and Grover's silly. They're all silly because they do silly things. They laugh and they joke and they do kind of funny dances and moves and make silly faces. Mother Gothel, she's just mean. She's not silly. She's not very nice to Rapunzel. And Cinderella, she's not silly, but she's not mean. She's very friendly and happy. And they're not silly.
He could move.
Put them in there. Okay. Well, you did a good job with silly and not silly. You gotta remember, when silly is things like making a funny face, or doing funny things, or saying funny things, sounding funny. Right? Those things are silly.
Number 2.